Good evening and welcome to regular meeting of TGS&A Committee here on Tuesday, January 18th. I see that we have a quorum and we also have some guests. Krista McNamara from the town as the town clerk, John Veazey and Susan Gray from the Registrar of Voters, and our friend Christian, who is moderating this and trying to save me from technical difficulties. We'll follow the agenda that was published, and the first item is to review and approve the minutes from the regular meeting of June 15th, which is the last formal meeting that we had. Is there any discussion about those minutes? And may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Seconded? Fine. Any negative votes? Any abstaining votes? The motion carries. Thank you very much. The first item on our agenda this evening is to provide an update on the redistricting issue that is upon us. It should not be a surprise that it happens every 10 years, coincident with the redesigning of federal House and Senate districts, actually federal House districts, but the state House and Senate go through this every 10 years. I forwarded 3 pages of just of background information from the paper. See if I get this over on the screen. Very nice write-up as to how the process proceeded on November. As you can see, in late November, the House and Senate districts were approved. Apparently, for all time, there does not appear to be any approved modification or appeals. They are what they are. So that was the first page. The second page had a nice article about the House, and then the third page had to do with the Senate. Just background information. The pushing and pulling of districts in the state is caused by the shift in population to the west. And while they made, as an understandable, every effort to maintain some semblance to the prior setup 10 years ago, the population has shifted and changes did have to be made. The committee that set it up was eight legislators, bipartisan, and there was not a big hassle. I'm sure behind the scenes there was a lot of tugging and pulling, but they got the vote done very quickly in the legislature without a whole lot of delays. That is different than the federal designation, which is now in a court process and has been appealed and sort of a big mess. But town of Darien is all within one federal House district, so we're not really affected by it directly. But every once in a while, you'll hear on the news that Connecticut is having a problem, and yes, they're having a problem at the federal level, but not at the state. As a background, the page that's on the let's get this a little bit better. The page that's presented on the town's website on the Registrar of Voters shows our 6 districts and our 6 districts and the designation of Senate and House votes. However, on the web right now are two very useful diagrams. One, see, I hope that this is coming up on the screen like a PowerPoint presentation. I just don't know whether it's working or not. Can you all see this diagram, which we sent out? It shows that, by the way, pause. Is the map visible on your screens?
Yes, yes, Frank.
Okay, good. It shows that from 2022 onwards, for the next 10 years, Darien will be hosting two House districts, 141, which is shown in green, and a little bit of 125, which is shown in pink up at the top. This is the beginning of the issue that we want to talk about this evening, is that now this is a new cut on the boundaries. The next page is somewhat more complex. And it shows a little different scale to this map, but here's Darien. And the cut here is shows that Darien is now host to three. Here are the boundaries of Darien, my cursor. It hosts to 3 Senate districts. At the top in white is District 26. In the middle, purple is 25. And then down along the coastline is 27. 27 is associated with Stamford. 25 is associated with Norwalk. And District 26 is a mess. It's Westport, Wilton, a little slice of New Canaan, and a good slice of Darien extending way over into Stamford. When you put the overlay of the complicated Senate district plus the House districts on top of the Darien layout, it causes a real headache in our District 1. What I can also say is that if you look at a detail of District 1 here, our registrars of voters had the assistance of planning and zoning and doing a CAD/CAM chart. And here's the bad news. District 1 is a green area here. So you have the 2 Senate districts up here at the top. You have a 3rd district in the middle here, and you have the other one down below. It's a mess. What we will hear shortly is a description of the mess from our colleagues at Registrar of Voters. I would like to, before we turn it over though, there's a chart which, if you bear with me, let's see if we can get this a little bit larger. Hold on a second. It's not going to work very well. All right, District 1 has 2,000 voters, and it votes down at 35 Leroy. 2, well, you can read, I hope that you can read it, 2 at Town Hall, and 2 and 5 at Town Hall. District 3 over at the Roten Heights Fire Department, and 4 at Hindley. And oh, by the way, there's an appendix to 4, which is also votes at Henley, but has a different layout. And I think I better go back to this layout. As you can see, the current House districts are 25 and 27. 27 being districts 2 and 4. The little appendix to 4 is District 25. And then as far as the Senate is concerned, it's always been straightforward. We've been in District 141 for most of the town, except the sliver, except for our District 3, which is in 147. Well, what does this mean? Why am I showing it to you? Well, what happens is I take the same chart, but add 4 lines in it up here at the top. Whereas, by the way, each of the districts have approximately 2,500 voters, 2,500 voters. So under this mess we have to deal with, District 1 has been cut, as you saw on the map a moment ago, it's been cut into 4 sub-districts, or the nice word for it is precincts. And so they don't have names at the moment. I believe that John and Susan were referring to them as A, B, C, D. I've listed here as 1, 2, 3, 4, generally described as the northwest section, northeast section, the central, and the south. Why do we have 4? Because of the combinations of the House and Senate. Here we got a 26-141, we have a 26-125, we have a 25-125, and a 25-141. It can't get any worse. Well, wait, it could get worse, but it is just about as bad as you can get. I think that I've run out my string on the describing of the problems. I know that John and Susan put together a little score sheet of notes that they would like to go over with us, and I'll put that up on the screen at the moment. It may help. It may help them. Who knows? But let's see what happens. Susan, would you like to go first, or John? Take it away.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll both talk, and I just want to start out by saying thank you to the committee for allowing Susan and Krista and I to kind of introduce this situation that we find ourselves in. And all 3 of us are concerned about facilitating the elections, the upcoming elections with the voters, and eliminating as much voter confusion as we can. And of course, with the 3 Senate districts overlaid with 2 House districts, overlaid with 6 local voting districts, we basically determined that we'd have to come up with 10 different ballots. And the example I want to use is District 4, where we have a precinct. Certain elections, we actually, Susan and I have to put in 2 lines of poll workers, depending on where the people live, and they're sent to a separate line. If we were to do that under the current new Senate House lines in District 1, we'd have 4 different voting lines to deal with at one location. So it becomes a little confusing. On top of that, if we never change the 6 local voting districts, and it remains for the next 10 years, 3 Senate and 2 House, we have to deal with that, and we have to deal with additional poll workers, additional facilities, additional tabulators to count the votes. So we have some real concerns. And on top of everything, we have to notify all the voters that now have changes in their Senate, House representatives. So that's going to happen anyway And we know that's going to generate a lot of questions. And then we're going to come in and talk to them about, notify them about where they're going to vote. So we have a ton of concerns. Krista has some concerns, and I'll let her mention those concerns because absentee ballots become a real project. Because again, we're dealing with 10 different ballot styles. So we have to go into our database, we have to change everybody if their Senate and House is changed and they remain in their same local voting district. So today, we just wanted to introduce some of our concerns, and I'll let Susan talk a little bit too about some of those concerns. I don't want to hog the whole conversation, but please ask any questions. I could talk forever, so, but please ask any questions. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so Susan, do you want to jump in or add anything?
No, I mean, I think it's, hi.
Susan, you're in your office. Take your mask off, or we have to do a little bit of lip reading.
I know I was going to say I won't say very much because
It's nice to see you.
I'm keeping my mask on. No, I mean, I think John really introduced most of our concerns. You know, we won't have enough room at our current poll location, which is 35 Leroy. It's very, if any of you vote in either District 6 or District 1, you know that 35 Leroy is very crowded, and especially during COVID, it's sort of been a real challenge. But if we have, we definitely can't keep 2 poll sites there anymore. And if we keep 1 poll site there, if it's District 1, it's going to be a challenge because we'll have to have different poll workers handling the different lines for the different precincts. It's just very challenging what they've handed down to us, and it's irrefutable. So we have to make it work, and we just wanted to let you know what was happening. So we have a lot of things to think about going forward, and costs are going to increase as well because of the redistricting. Krista, do you want to add anything?
Go ahead, Krista. I want to make sure we hear from you before we move on.
Thanks so much. A couple of things I thought I would just add for a little bit of context. As Frank had framed this, again, this all gets kicked off because of the census. Census is done every 10 years, which kicks off the state, which then forces municipalities, 169 of us, to look at our respective local voting districts. So this was addressed by the Darien RTM back 10 years ago. So this is the exercise you're embarking upon was done 10 years ago. So you are you're not breaking ground here. This is something that the RTM does look at. We're also coming to you tonight because the RTM is empowered to make any changes if recommended or if you choose to do so on how the local municipality and the local voting districts address the changes made by the state. So just to frame it, that is your charge now to say, what do we do with this information? And then what works best with Darien? So I think the voter identification and understanding to whom or within what Senate district do I now belong, with what House district do I belong as a resident of Darien is bad enough. I think one of my goals is to help voter identification and avoid confusion. As John mentioned, as town clerk, my office is responsible for the absentee ballot process. So as we currently stand, the Darien absentee ballots, we'd be sending out 10 ballots. We'd be creating 10 ballots styles to process the 2022 election. John probably has, with his colleagues across the state, that's a ridiculous number of ballots. Sorry for that adjective, for a municipality of 14,000 electors. So we're trying to look at this. Does this make sense? And coming back to you all with what do we think is a reasonable way for Darien to address what the state has.
Thank you, Krista. While we were talking, Harry sent a message around saying, Harry says, will ballots for state Senate and House candidates become more complicated in Darien? Sounds like it. Well, if I may answer, for the individual voter going into the voting booth, looking at the ballot, it'll be the same. They'll have the state and national candidates on the front and the RTM on the back. So for individuals, it will not be more complicated. For the administration in administering the election through the town clerk's office and the registrar of voters working together to pull off a good, orderly, calm, well-organized election, they will, no matter what happens, they're going to have to be working diligently behind the scenes. But to answer Harry's question, no, voter, it's going to look the same to the voter.
Yeah,
Are there other questions? Are there other questions out there at this early stage?
Yeah, Frank, I just want to add to that. When we took District 4 and we made a precinct, we did encounter a little voter confusion as to where they go to vote. Now, if we take the new setup and we use District 1, where we have some very large concerns, District 1 used to have 1 ballot before. Now they're going to have 4. So all those people that came and got the same ballot, they're going to end up having to find out which precinct they're in. So whenever you have different ballots, because we make them different colors, you know, whenever you have that and you have poll workers that work once a year, you can run into mistakes. You can have the wrong ballot. The person could go to the wrong line. One of the things Susan and I introduced over the years is we have people sitting up front looking at a person's address and directing them to the line that they should be in with the ballot. That's more manpower, and we will have to increase our manpower to do that. You know, the more you consolidate, if I have 1 ballot clerk giving out 4 ballots, the chances that the wrong ballot could be given out can happen. The chances, you know, there's always opportunity for the wrong ballot to be handed to someone. So
you're right. You're right, John. The organization of a polling place is a beautiful thing. It looks like as we go into vote, it all looks very orderly, but there's been one heck of a lot of work going on to make it look. Harry, I think that you've worked as a poll worker. Is that true? Harry, where are you? There he is. No, he's on mute.
I'm connected by phone, so I thought before I was maybe interfering. Yeah, I guess now I'm unmuted,
Okay.
But no, I've seen it in several different situations. So
as a quick poll, since the election, we really don't know each other very well on this committee at this point. I'd like to ask you if you have worked as a poll operative, registrar of voters, ballot clerk, and have you had any job in a polling operation ever? Could you raise your hand? Yeah, Harry, I see you know. Okay, I recommend it. Once we get through all this and you have some spare time on your hands, I recommend you turn yourself in to Susan and John and
they know me.
And do it, because it is really a lot of fun. Yes, David.
So, Frank, redistricting is beyond our control. You know, this has been done and it's pretty much set in stone. So the question is, what is it that, you know, the registrars and Krista need from the RTM? How can we make their jobs easier? You know, what is the ask from the RTM here?
well, we have the ability under a state law to suggest, make a recommendation to the RTM as far as the local setup of voting districts. I'll give you an example. Right now with the 6 districts, if I want to move a polling location, say from 3 into the area where District 4 is, I can't because they're not adjacent. So now I'm limited because I have 6 districts. So of course, in my mind, I say if we had 3 districts, I wouldn't have that adjacent problem, and I could take a better location like the town hall and utilize that for different voting districts. So it's only because we're a small town and we have limited areas where Susan and I could hold an election. And now what they've done to us is overlay these boundaries, which now I have 10 ballots, and several of our locations are hard to handle currently, and they're going to be harder to handle. So we think, all right, we'll find a bigger location, but I'm limited because I can only go to an adjacent district. So that's just one issue we have. So
in my opinion,
yeah,
have always been very helpful here. You know, I mean, you're like I said, we're a small town. We're 14 square miles. We're 21,000 people. We have 6 voting districts. Why is that? I mean, what is the point of that?
I think, or David, I mean, to sum up, and I really appreciate your question, is what I think what we're coming to you, John and Susan, really leading this charge, is to say, is the current structure of the Darien local voting system the best system for Darien given this new environment in which we face? There are multiple factors. There's voting sites, equipment, staff, cost, voter identification. So that is what we're looking to start doing and introducing the topic. Is this the best? And if we don't think it is the best, we will come to you with a proposal as to what we think is the best for Darien, from which you as RTM and subcommittee, of course, TGS&A, will opine upon and move forward.
Yeah, I mean, you have
right.
a decision.
Districts to change the Senate districts and the state rep districts. So, I mean, this is just a matter of like where we're sending people to vote on election day. You know, am I incorrect on that?
It may have, I'm sorry, it may have some repercussions on the actual RTM too. Maybe not. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I think that's it. Is 6 the current 6 local RTM voting districts? Is that construct the right construct for the new Darien?
Separate question from that, this idea of adjacent, is that something that the RTM and TGS&A can simply update the language to solve that problem?
No, that's state law. Several years ago, before Susan was here, her predecessor, we tried to change that because if you remember, we moved a couple of poll sites out of the schools because we had that identification issue. And we petitioned the state Secretary of State's office to make those changes that you had just asked about. And they said, no, you can't do that. You have to go by the laws of the state on polling districts. So we're kind of bound by those state laws. I mean, Susan and I could try to challenge it again. We didn't get anywhere last time, so.
The problem is there's different voter ID requirements for schools than there is for voting. And there are other towns that vote in schools and they figure it out, but our superintendent of schools, superintendents have maintained sort of collectively that they do not want to close schools. They don't want to put in writing that they will automatically close school on election day. They do that for us, but it's not in writing, and there is some legislation that's been introduced, but I think it wasn't it wasn't approved, it wasn't enacted. I know it wasn't. So, sorry.
Thank you, Susan. I guess the message to our committee is my message to the committee is that watch out over the next couple of weeks. I will be calling on you to join me in meetings with the town administration, certainly town clerk and registrar of voters, probably the selectmen, to pursue this further. Seth has asked Seth Morton has asked TGS&A to look into this matter. And so this evening's session is the first step of looking into this matter, hardly coming up with a solution. And we're looking forward to that. And so my message to my friends on TGS&A is watch out. I'm going to be asking you to volunteer to join me in some of these meetings. Okay, what else do we have?
Can I just say one more thing? This 3-district proposal came up 3 years ago. John and I were tasked with writing a proposal for Jamie and Kate Bush. It wasn't our initiative. They came to us. So they sort of planted the seed, but at the time, then COVID happened and it was sort of dropped. And then it was sort of revisited as a natural consequence of this state redistricting. Just to give you a little idea about how this has germinated.
Susan, do you have an idea of what year that may have been, and are there any records of those discussions available through your office?
I mean, I looked at the proposal that we wrote, I think it was in 2019, and it has to be rewritten. It doesn't really apply anymore because everything's changed. But
okay, Susan,
yes.
since you brought it up, can we look to you to get any information that still exists from those discussions? Forward it to me and I'll forward it to the committee. Thank you for bringing that up.
Frank, I do want to add, and Susan, I do want to reiterate that this is a whole new this is a whole new ball game. We're looking at a whole new redistricting with different census data. So I think John and Susan are going to start with the current scenario as we have now with the best plan going forward. So respectfully, I'm not sure what was looked at a couple of years ago is as relevant, and John, I'll defer to you on that too.
Yeah,
Krista, Krista, were you on the Board of Selectmen at the time?
I don't know.
Krista, were you a member of the Board of Selectmen at the time this came up?
Nothing was presented to the Board of Selectmen during my term, no.
Okay, so I think that David Bain probably put as close to putting a finger on the issue of there could be two issues here. One is the administration of the election via polling booths to make it go well for our registered voters. And the other topic is the administration of the RTM as to how the RTM chooses to organize itself in 6 districts. And these two topics overlap, but they are essentially different questions. And as we move forward on this, we may find ourselves pulling the topics apart a little bit. It would be ideal to smash them together and have the administration operations of the RTM, the way it's organized by districts and committees and how things have been run forever, has been caused by this 6-car pileup in District 1. The rest of the town, it should be noted that the other 5.1 districts are integrity, have their integrity and are mappable. And when we show the map of the problem, it is confined to our friends up in District 1. All right.
Frank, can I just point out one thing? Even though the other districts aren't affected like one, part of the solution, if we were to go to less districts, local districts, would be moving some of those districts, switching them, and using the bigger locations to handle a district like one where we might have 3 lines of voters. So,
Well,
even though
John, you put your finger on it. That's the one half of it is the voting administration. Somewhat different than, sometimes overlapping, but different than the RTM's organization.
Yeah, well, you know what Seth told us. He told me, and I spent the last 9 years doing this, is keeping the districts equal. And he said, that's the one thing you have to do. You have to keep the district's equal representation. So with that in mind, we have that part to even, you know, enforce too. So it's a challenge
All right.
for us, but, you know.
It certainly is. And our thanks go to Susan and Krista and you, John, for keeping us on track. I can only promise that this will come up again, and this has been an absolutely excellent first step tonight. Quickly, are there any committee members who have any questions?
My question is,
All right.
if we make new RTM districts, when does it become effective, and what if it's off cycle for some people in different districts?
Well, that's why it's going to require this charter change and charter revision in order to do this. No, Krista?
No, I think that's a very good question. It's an important question. This was done 10 years ago, that it is a Wayne question. I don't believe this is charter. This is appendix over which the RTM has full control. So I just want to make clear, any changes here would not be looking at a charter change, an appendix.
Well, if we're going to change 6 districts down to 3 or 4 districts and basically revamp the formation of the RTM, aren't we going to require, isn't that going to require a charter change? That's just in the appendix? That I haven't looked at it.
I'm going to defer to Wayne on that. It's an important point. We certainly don't, any recommendation would not involve people losing their seats, etc. So you would finish your term in the district in which you were elected.
Right, we keep a body in the RTM. It's just a matter of whether we have 6 districts or 4 districts, but I think that's going to require some element of charter change. And I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we need to look at the charter to determine that.
Absolutely.
Can you hear me, David? Can you hear me?
Yes.
David?
Well,
I believe that there's a statute that requires a vote of the RTM. I think it's the first line of the statute that says a town governing board may from time to time change or alter or modify its districts. But even if the charter doesn't require a vote, the statute requires a vote of the town governing board to enact said change. So I'm pretty sure, I'll read it again. I'm pretty sure it doesn't require a charter change. But I'll
okay.
It does require a vote.
Well, thank you. As you can tell, I'm interested in moving along. As to our good and loyal clerk of the meeting, Will Cusack, will probably make a notation. The topic came up, a lively discussion ensued, and we moved on. And I know Will make it very, very short, because that's exactly what we're doing, is providing background information right now. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Moving on to the, and stay with us if you'd like. If you'd like to have another cup of coffee, we won't feel bad.
You know,
We won't feel bad if you leave. Now, Krista, you are a key player in the next item on the agenda. The next on the agenda has to do with a modification to Appendix B, which is the RTM rules and operating procedures, that has been in there for a long time, that our agendas and minutes had to be published in the newspaper 10 days before our meetings. When this came up recently, the question was asked, why do we have to do the newspaper? We could cut it down to 5 days, which would be a nice idea, or we could vote, the RTM vote to amend Appendix B so that the requirement for putting that information in the newspaper hard copy can be eliminated in favor of what is going on right now and has gone on for quite a while, as posting agendas and warnings on the website. Krista wrote a nice memo today, which I distributed. I don't have it on my screen, but perhaps you could walk us through it, Krista, and then we'll get a sense of the meeting as to what we ought to do here.
Okay, I don't want to reread my memo. I don't know if anyone has questions on it, but just for a little bit of background is, I became your town clerk June 1st of last year, and I see my role is looking at the way we are doing things and can we work, I want to use the word smarter for lack of better terms. Is it the most efficient? Are we achieving our objectives? Are there any cost savings that can be found? So that's the lens, the eye in which I am approaching every task I embark on. Of course, making sure I am following state statute, making sure I am following the laws of the RTM as written in the town charter and in the appendix. So clearly this issue about advertising legal notices in a newspaper had come up. So in speaking to the Rules Committee and some of and Seth and Frank, you have before you this resolution and this memo, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I agree with you. I think this is a great change, but my only question is, do we need to add something here that says that upon the request of any member of the public, we will distribute, the agenda and whatever information is available to them? And when we're saying upon request of an RTM member, the information will be electronically distributed, but shouldn't we also add the public?
I personally have, so I'm just trying to think this through. So someone would email me or call me and ask me for a copy of the agenda.
Right.
Is that what you're thinking, David? Okay.
I think he's looking at the last sentence, but I think that sentence is there just in case the person doesn't want it mailed to them, before that it says we shall be posted to the town and electronically distributed and mailed to each member of the RTC. So it's a shall be. So that's going to happen no matter what. I think it just is upon request, you don't need to get it by mail. I think that's how I read it.
Right, but the question is, if a member of the public contacts the town clerk and wants a copy of the agenda and whatever materials are being distributed, should that be sent to them, or is that just, if it's on the website, is that unnecessary?
Question is, how many members of the public rely on newspapers as opposed to the website?
Or some other.
I think that if we're asked that type of question at the RTM meeting next Monday night, a measured response could be that if Krista's office finds that there's an onslaught of people who do depend on the newspaper, then we can certainly, then 2 things can happen. One, she could put up a little mailing list to send them the copy, which is a lot of work, or B, we can come back and revisit this decision and put it back in some way, maybe so that it could be posted 5 days ahead of time rather than 10. But it would seems to be a common sense or prudent way to proceed in eliminating the newspaper. And then if a good number of people object and it became that we made a mistake in doing that, then we can always remedy the mistake. Or in fact, Krista could start buying the space again without our legislation doing it. So by taking a bold step right now, we position ourselves very nicely to find out if people are depending on the newspaper. And if they speak up on it, then Krista has the opportunity to go back and make those modest charges of a couple $100 each time, not to exceed $500. What is the number, by the way, yet you spend?
I did emailed the committee with an update for the warning that was just put in. It was $200. And I want to stress that this clearly is not moving the mill rate. It's not
I'd like to practice this answer to make it short, but if asked the question in the RTM floor, I would say something along those lines, confident that the amount that we spend on the newspaper is so small that if Krista has to return to putting it in, it's not going to, it's not material. So that doesn't, it's a work involved, and we're trying to save our office work.
I totally agree with that. My only question is whether we want to expand the people who are, who we can distribute the information to the public in the resolution. And I also think that now looking at the resolution, we're talking about the warning, the agenda, and the resolutions, but we're not talking about like sometimes the backup information, the memoranda explaining the reason for the resolution. So maybe that should be, so this should be the warning, comma, agenda, comma, resolutions, and backup information provided to the RTM shall be posted on the website and electronically distributed to each RTM member.
okay.
Right?
Well, if this thing passes, when it passes, that can certainly be included. But the information about backup and all that, we're not putting that in the newspaper.
Right.
Never have.
Okay.
So, of course, as far as David and I are concerned, always arm wrestling whether we have to amend our resolution or not. And I'm in favor of leaving it alone if we can, because I hate that amendment process on the floor. Well, we do it. But,
right. My only point
it's
is
let a sleeping dog lie in this case.
All right.
Yeah, David's always awaking these sleeping dogs.
Okay.
Yeah.
The warning is only
It's a good point.
agenda. An example was sent to you all today. So it is truly just the agenda that is posted in the newspaper.
Right.
All right. Does anybody else have a question for Krista? Certainly thank you for joining us tonight. All right. I'd like to entertain a resolution that to the effect that a TGS&A committee recommends that the members of the RTM vote in favor of this resolution. Could I have somebody propose something like that?
I'll move the resolution.
Thank you, David. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second.
Come on. Okay, thank you. And now that we have the resolution on our little floor here, we have a resolution, we have a second. This is an opportunity for discussion if there is in a formal way. All right, hearing then, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor, please indicate. Will, are you okay with the vote there?
Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah, okay. And then any those opposed? I don't see any. Speak up if you're opposed. Any abstentions? Well, very good then. What we'll do is to write up the typical TGS&A report to the body, recommending that this thing be passed. And I do recognize that the points that were made during this discussion are valid, in that if turns out that we shouldn't have done this, we can undo it in a formal way, or through procedures that the town clerk's office can resume, but at a less hectic pace than they've had to go through. Krista, thank you very much. If you would like to stay for the rest of the meeting, please do, and we won't be upset if you do leave.
I am going to respectfully say goodnight to you all, but thank you very much for considering this resolution. And please do not hesitate to reach out to me if there's any questions you all have between now and Monday, the 24th, when you will be voting as a full body on this resolution. Okay, thanks all. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, good night. The third topic for us to discuss is the preliminary results that came back from Unicode on their project to review our charter and code to identify gender-specific terms that have been in there. We often always talk about buggy whips. The newspaper item is a buggy whip that's been in there for a long time. The gender-specific items have been in there. They were never put in there with any malice or any any adverse intent. They've just been there. That's the way legislation was written way back in the day. And it is felt, as we discussed at the RTM meeting that approved this project, that it was time to take a fresh look at the charter and code. Unicode did use a computer system, and just to get this out of the way, since it has to do with the change to the charter, the definitions of how you proceed with that, a change to the charter, as opposed to the code, requires a newspaper notice and a public hearing, and then a cooling off period. After the hearing, the RTM can't take up the topic for 60 days. They're very interesting. Probably useful if something is really, really controversial, that you have a public hearing, you have a 60-day cooling off period for people to consider what was said at the public hearing, and then for the RTM to act. So because of that, this process is just going on a lot more slowly than we had anticipated, but it is moving forward. We received a report from Unicode, and we can see from the way the I sent out 2 pages the other day, and then I sent out 48 pages yesterday. You could see from the way they highlighted incidences of certain keywords that they were doing a computer search on, that it was a computer-based thing. Every once in a while, they'd hit the word THE, the receipt shall be paid, and they found the HE in the THE, and they highlighted it as something to be changed. It kind of, and then you can also see that towards the end, there's a term called the manhole in the public works section. There's the manhole covers, and the computer picked that up, and they suggested an alternative. It's a public access hatch or something kind of goofy, but it also anyway indicating that what we're dealing with. So what you have is a 48-page document with the left-hand column identifies the section of code it is. The middle is an extract of the relevant paragraph, and on the right indicates the word that can be substituted in for the gender-specific term. When I first started to look at it, I thought this would be kind of a cakewalk. This is not such a bad project after all. And then I got into the police pension section. And oh boy, was that, when you get into section 50, you'll see it's like chicken pox in there. It's just one after another. And the irony is, with women being on the police force and women contributing to the pension system and shortly being able to collect their pension, it probably adds some urgency to our go ahead and fix that chapter up. It's the worst. It's the most difficult section, and I wanted to try and walk around it and exempt, leave it alone. But after looking at it for a while, no, we got to pay attention to our friends in the police department and get that thing straightened out. So this is a non-voting item. We voted on the one thing that we have to vote on. So this is a sort of a discussion to answer questions, and after that, I'm going to hand out some assignments. So watch out. Okay, what are your questions?
I have a question. Out of the 4,500 that they're asking for, have we paid MuniCode anything already to do their project?
I'm sorry. Could you repeat your question, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Have we paid MuniCode anything yet for doing their project?
Yes. In the document that I sent out, and I need to refer to it, so give me just a moment here.
There was a resolution about approving, slightly revising their contract or the engagement, if you will.
I want to make sure I got the numbers right, though. This is one of the items that went out. You may see it on the screen here. The reason I'm familiar with the thing, but I just really want to get the dollar amounts straightened out.
$3,000. Did I just see that?
Right.
Yeah.
For phase one.
Yeah. Look, to answer your question, we've paid a portion. There are two portions. One was to get them to do the survey, and they give us a report. And then we modify the report as we want to do, have the RTM, have public hearing, have the RTM approve it, and then send it back to them. And then I think that's $1,500 that they will charge to take all the little changes and actually put them into our official code. So to answer your question, yes, we've paid $3,000. And once the project is, to bring the project to a conclusion, we will have to pay $1,500.
And who goes through what they've done and decides what needs to be done? Is it our committee or some other committee?
That would be us.
It would.
Right.
Like if we don't like the word they or something, I don't know. You just mentioned a few, like manhole. We wouldn't change manhole.
Yeah. That's what brings us to our next topic. That document is 48 pages long. I've looked through it a couple of times. What I plan to do is later tonight, tomorrow, is take up our names and assign each of us 10 pages to look at.
Mm-hmm.
And the 10 pages would be somewhat going to make it complicated, because you would have a person, especially say going from 1 to 10. Another person would go from 5 to 10 and 10 to 15. In other words, I want to do it a layering so that there are two sets of eyes looking at it, because Lord knows there are probably some goofy things in there, some mistakes, or some misuses of the word there that could be probably better phrased. Oftentimes, it's like in the Department of Public Works, where they're talking about the Public Works Director. So he shall set up a schedule for maintenance of bridges. Well, then it could put, you got to get around that. It could say, substitute the director of Public Works will set up a schedule to inspect the bridges. You'll insert the formal noun rather than a pronoun, because it's the pronouns that gets us in trouble. So There are
Yeah,
surely some clumsy constructions in there. And if we can go through in a somewhat organized way so that we have two sets of eyes looking at each section, we will then be able to report back to rules that we have a document. We're going to put it on the rules' lap to what they're going to do with it. They'll refer it back to us. But I would make the argument that they should refer it to all the committees, because you've got sections of the charter and code that have to do with pieces of the organization that our committees have to do with: public works, education, public health and safety. So I am going to be a spokesperson for when we return this to rules, urge rules to make the secondary committees fairly general. That way we get buy-in at some point on this, so that we don't go to the floor of the RTM ultimately and someone like backbencher comes up and says, "Oh, I didn't like the page on page 22." That's bad. Okay, so
Looking at this, Frank.
I would allow people to opt out on this, but I would also rather have everybody somewhat unhappy that they have to do 10 pages. But they can be happy that there'll be the 5 and 5, and a different reviewer will view the other 5.
So
Just
what's
make
the
it
time frame?
complicated.
I'll
Say
just
again?
offer that I only saw this for a couple hours this afternoon, but on quick review of, say, half of it, it's probably 90 to 95% okay. There are a few losers in there that are easily spotted or corrected, and I'm sure the input from the involved departments would be useful, but it's not it's more of a mechanical exercise almost than a drafting.
Was that Harry? Was
Yes.
that Harry talking?
Yes.
Oh my
sorry.
Lord, that's why I love you. I love you. That's just
I
that's
didn't have time
good.
to do. I literally, there's a few that I found outrageously off, but 90% of it's like, okay, this is on the way to getting the job done in terms of correcting and getting rid of gender neutral, or making it more gender neutral.
Well, that's very encouraging, Harry. As the rest of you may not know, Harry is a long-term member of this committee and has wrestled through the plastic bag ban and the dog leash ban and blight, and he's really given us a hard time on all those things. Harry's a professional proofreader. Hey, watch out, Harry. You may be getting all 48 pages if you keep that.
Well, as I said, I did about half today, so I'm happy to consult.
All right. Other questions?
Harry's welcome to have my pages.
I'm sorry. Other questions?
I was just saying Harry can have my pages.
What's the time frame?
If he didn't exist, we'd have to invent him. It's great. He's one of the good guys. All right.
Frank, what do you want?
Unless there are any other questions, the next item is any other new business that may be called to the attention of the committee. All right, I have one just to mention, is that we've noticed that there's another mention of newspapers in the code. It has to do with an obscure section of the water safety regulations. And I'm going to go back to the parties that mentioned that and suggest that we'd be very willing to make another run at cutting back newspapers, but it may be better to encase that with other maintenance changes in a sort of a bucket list. If we can get, rather than have a whole resolution dedicated to that, as we just did with the town clerk, then let's do it. But otherwise, our mission is to try to find those buggy whips in the code and take them out as best we can. And yes, there's another newspaper thing we need to look at. So that's one piece of new business, just to mention it. Is there anything else? Well, jeepers, thank you for making the time this evening and working on this. Read your email tomorrow morning to find out just what part of the 48 pages you have responsibility for. And I would like to entertain a motion that we adjourn. Oh, please.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Oh, that's wonderful. This motion carries on, as Seth likes to say, the motion carries on a rising tally. So I'll say good night to you all. Christian, thank you for monitoring this, and we look forward to seeing it on Channel 79 in a day or two.
Yeah, have a good
Bye,
night.
Frank.
Okay, thanks, Frank.
Good night.
And everyone.
Good night.
Thank you. Thanks.